So Kenny has, wow, what's going on with the camera? Kenny has written me asking if he could send me a logo draft that he created and if I could tell him my very honest opinion. So in this video we will be doing this. We will be looking at Kenny's logo, judging it and see if we can make any better. So let's take a look at the logo. I like it. It's good. It's good. It's a fun logo. So the thing that I think stands out is really the color. It's a very colorful, very bright, very saturated logo. Pop Culture Circle. It means pop culture circle. For those of you not speaking German, to be honest, I have zero context of what the logo is for. Let me know in the comments what you think this logo could be about. And Kenny, of course, you will be liking all the comments that are remotely right. So pop culture circle using a popcorn bucket. Yeah, that's a cool idea. I like it. There's a lot of cool things in this logo. Can we make it any better? Of course we can. So let's do it. Let's dive right in and see how we can improve on Kenny's logo. So the first thing that we will be doing with Kenny's logo is we will be looking at typefaces. We want to find a font that actually matches his style and really does his logo justice. Of course, we would be looking usually at a premium logo font, at a premium typeface, something that is paid and might cost up to a couple of $100. But because there is no money involved in this project and Kenny doesn't have a budget, we are looking for a more budget-friendly alternative. So the first thing that you might want to do is check Google Fonts. Since I'm not a big Google Fonts fan, I'm looking at an alternative platform here, which is FontShare. You can find another video that I have created in the past about these Google font alternatives, where you can find even more and sometimes even better fonts than on Google Fonts. So you might want to check out this video, which I will be linking in one of the corners here. The typeface that we are looking for Kenny's logo is something really bold and modern. If I would treat this as a paid project, I would be looking at a font like HWT Arts from Eric Spiekermann, probably. Let's see if we can find something similar here on FontShare. So, of course, we can filter the whole thing here by categories or properties or personality. We're looking for a modern font for sure, so something that is kind of straightforward and a little bit big, a little bit bold. Maybe works in uppercase typeface. Something like Tanker, for example. So Tanker, I think, is a great alternative to the HWT Arts. Let's see if, it kind of looks cool. The K looks cool. Let's see if we do it in German or English. I'm not decided yet, but generally I'm a big fan of this typeface. It's very straightforward, very uppercase, very condensed, but it still has these nice little rounded features, which gives it a little bit of a wittiness, and I think this will probably be a very, very cool font to use for the pop culture circle logo. Of course, we want to stick with the popcorn bag idea. So as part of the visual research, it's always a good idea to just Google what you are aiming for. And if we see here the selection of popcorn bags, so basically how a popcorn bag will be displayed if we use it in a simplified version, in a logo or icon version, we definitely see two things that we can add and that we can help to convey the idea of a popcorn bag. The first one being that very few of these bags are actually straight, as in Kenny's original approach. So most of them have this little conic shape here, so they are a little bit slimmer at the bottom than they are at the top. So we're trying to do this as well. And the second thing that we are seeing is these stripes, red and white stripes for popcorn bags. Nowadays, if you go to the cinema, you will probably get like an Avengers or Marvel or Dune popcorn bag made entirely of plastic. But this is the classic stuff, and of course, we wanna like follow the classic idea. So let's see if we can add this to our logo. All right, so with this as a preparation, we are moving now to Figma. All right, so welcome to Figma. We do have our research here. We have Kenny's original logo. We do have our font installed and ready. And of course, we do have our visual research. We do have the popcorn bags that we have just seen on Google Images. So let's jump straight into the design mode and start with the actual name, Pop Culture Circle. I am choosing to work with the English version here just to make everything a little bit more approachable. But of course, in the final logo, we will probably opt for the German name Popkulturzirkel. So let's change the font to Tanker, the one that we have chosen, and work a little bit to make things nice and big. All right, so we will probably go for a very dense word mark here. Also work with a little bit of negative tracking just because the font can take it. And you see already the nice and witty features. So the tracking is not perfect, tracking being the distance, the space between the letters. So you see here the letter pairs P and O and P. You do have a little bit of a bigger gap here, which is kind of cool and a little bit of a funny imperfection. So this is definitely something we can work with for this logo. And of course, we want to now see if we can turn the whole thing here into a nice block. Very similar to the original idea from Kenny's logo design. Maybe this one is a bit too big, so let's see if the original one, which or the original size here, with 120 for the pop, 120 for the circle, and then for culture a little bit bigger, 95, creates a nice little square for us, which we can work with. And we do have this extra space here, which could look very cool in the final version. So let's just see how it works. Of course, we do want to create a popcorn bag. So let's start by adding a square. And of course, we want to make sure that it's really, really square. So we are being super precise here. Very nice. And then we are creating the sides. So as you remember in our visual research in the popcorn bags that we have been looking at, we could see these little waves here on top, these little features. So let's see if we can replicate this in our very own design just by changing the corner radius of the two upper corners here to something very, very big. Yeah, maybe let's go all the way 100. Nice. All right, so to combat the loss in height here, we're just making the whole thing a little bit higher than the original one. This looks pretty good. So let's marry the whole thing and see if we can reach the same width as the original box. Yeah. This looks kind of cool. So now what we do is we subtract the text here to get a little bit negative spacing for the word mark. And then we have the other side here also matched. So now we have the two building blocks for our popcorn box. And now we're trying to turn this whole thing into a popcorn box. So we would now have to skew the sides to basically create this boxy feeling. For that, we could use a plugin in Figma. By the way, we're using Figma because it's a free software. A lot of these things that we're doing here could easily be done, or maybe even better be done in Illustrator or Photoshop. But because this is a no budget project, as I mentioned, I wanted to use something that is actually free, that you can use free. So Figma would be the tool of choice here. And let's see how far we can get. All right, so here's a little trick for skewing squares in Figma. So the easy trick is to just rotate them a little bit, then group them, and then just change the height of the group. That would usually do the trick. One thing that we figure is now it kind of breaks the word mark here. It breaks the text. So let's go back. So let's go back here and turn the text into a vector so it can't break anymore. So with that being done, we will just group the whole thing. Then squeeze it just a little bit. Ungroup it, and then once we rotate it back, we do have a nice little box here. Yeah, that looks kind of cool. All right, so this is not perfect isometry and not perfect science, which is by no means what we're aiming for. We just want to have something that kind of resembles this nice little popcorn box here. For now, it still doesn't look like a popcorn box. It looks a little bit like a moving box. So we are still up for doing some tweaks here. So the first thing is just rotating this second box just a tiny little bit. This looks cool. And then we're squeezing the whole thing. So usually I would be against squeezing text, but since we're skewing and altering it already, yeah, why actually not? So now you can see this almost looks like we wanted it to look. However, the whole conic shape, the one where we are shorter or slimmer on the bottom than on the top, that we haven't been able to achieve yet. And for this one, we will be using a plugin. So we are looking for a plugin called Warp Tools. And Warp Tools is actually a free plugin that you can use as a trial version for a couple of times until you have to pay for it. It's not a subscription, it's a one-time payment of, I think, $25, which is totally fine in my opinion. And now you can see why we haven't been super perfect in creating these vectors here. So as you can see, this one's not totally straight, this one's not totally straight as well. But all of this is fine because we are now squeezing the whole thing and bam, here we go. Popcorn box all the way. So now we have to just see how slim we want this thing to be. And of course, we want to keep the little spacing here between these two sides just to emphasize that there is an edge in the logo later. All right, this looks super good. Let's insert this whole thing. And now the cool thing is that it won't insert this as an image, but it will actually be a vector which we can play with and use. Now, the vector, as you can see, is not super good. So we do have like a lot of helper points here. So if you want to work with this vector now and like change border radius or stuff like that, maybe you want to do that before, but for our case here, for our logo, it's totally fine. All right, so this is almost our pop culture circle logo. Now we're missing one big thing, which is the filling. If we go back to research and we look at the nice little popcorn kernels here, we see that in the original logo, we do have a lot of detail. So these are many kernels with a lot of color, a lot of shading. And if we look at our visual research, we can see that, of course, we can stylize this whole thing a lot. So something like this is actually what we would be aiming for. So let's see if we can create popcorn kernels just by using circles in different sizes. So yeah, let's be a little bit organic. Let's be a little bit witty about these popcorn kernels. Maybe something like this could work. Yeah, looks good. This also almost looks like a popcorn kernel. So let's see what it does when we just like copy paste them. Maybe change size just a little bit. And then replicate the whole thing. Great. So this kind of works. We are now turning this whole thing into a big pile of popcorn. To do that, the first thing that we're going to do is we will create a negative mask. So we will basically take our box shape here. This does look good. Nice. And going to Object, Outline Stroke. Okay. So sometimes this doesn't work, especially if you have like a very complex shape. So let's see if we can work around this a little bit just by using the side here. Outline Stroke. Okay. So as you can see, this is not perfect, so we will probably be doing this by hand. Unfortunately, Figma is not the greatest and most amazing tool for creating vectors, but don't worry, for a logo like this, we can totally make it happen still. So now we will create this mask here just by hand using the vector tool, which is a little bit more cumbersome. But since our shape is not too complex, I guess we can make it happen. So this kind of works here. Yeah, it's good. Not perfect, but good. All right. Now with that shape in mind, we want to, of course, go all in with the popcorn. So let's create a whole pile of popcorn. If you remember the original shape, let's just go back here for a minute. We can see some of these kernels shining through, and also here in the stylized versions, we do have a little bit of these white dots, which are basically showing the texture of the popcorn. Because in our logo, we don't want to introduce a secondary color, and we do not want to have this as a, as an illustration, but rather as a logo. We have to find a way on dealing with that. And the easiest way of doing this is by just leaving a little bit of space in between these kernels to act as texture. So if you zoom out, this will create this illusion of the popcorn laying not super dense, but with a little bit of air and with a little bit of fluff in between. So far I'm actually quite happy with the popcorn that we have so far. So let's just take all of this, union this, and now we need our mask shape, which has an outline, which we don't want. We want this to be, subtracted. And of course, this is part of a frame, which it shouldn't be. So this looks good, but of course we want this to be the other way around. Yes, like this. Okay, so now we can fine-tune this shape a little bit and see what the final result will look like. So I hope you enjoyed this video, that you enjoyed this process. Kenny, I hope that you like your new logo and that you learned a little bit along the way on how to improve logos from a design perspective. Of course, we are still taking applications for the Human Deluxe Culture Fund, which is our way of supporting the creative community here in Berlin. If you are an artist, a musician, a photographer, anything, and you need professional design services for your project, let it be a poster, a record cover, a website, anything, or a logo maybe, then check the link in the description and see if this is something for you. Apply with your project to get a very, very, very big discount on our usual services and bring your creative project to life with professional design services. I will see you in the next video. Looking forward to it. Bye.